How often do you check your mail? Once a day? Maybe once a week? Probably even less than that. When you think about it, we don't really think about checking the mail. It's just something we do. Like taking out the garbage, or going to the grocery store and picking up food. It's just a part of life. Now we all rush to our boxes, whether they be at your front door or down the street. You have to walk to or on the curb, and we pick up bills, maybe even junk mail, letters from colleges, student financial aid offices, social security checks. Mail is a very important thing, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And how did all this come about? How did all this start? Well, first of all, let me begin by saying that I am an Operation Program Specialist for the United States Postal Service. I've worked for the Post Office about 9 years now. I started out as a mailman, delivering door to door. The mailboxes hangs right by the front door. And then I became a supervisor for 3 years, and now I work for the district office analyzing data and operations. So how does all of this information, the multitude of programs, machines, and people working in the post office today, how did all that start? When? By who? Well, that's what we're going to discuss here today. In 1775, Benjamin Franklin was named the first Postmaster General of the United States. Now, a lot of the technologies and what we call schemes that he used to separate the mail in a specific order is used today, at least the theory behind it. At his time, Benjamin Franklin developed what was called like a cubbyhole system. And there'd be specific areas and addresses in specific cubbyholes, and then you memorize the system, and that's how it stays. And you memorize the order, and you can sort it from there. Now, it's the same theory used today, except today the machines will process 36,000 letters an hour. And that's just one plant on one machine and one plant all over the country. Billions of pieces of mail. Now, in 1847, the first stamp was issued. So before that, there weren't even any stamps. And we've come from the first stamp in 1847 to today, we have forever stamps. And you can purchase forever stamps today, and in 30 years, you can still use it. You don't have to make up the difference by putting a bunch of 1 cent or 2 cent stamps all over your letter or your box. You can just use a forever stamp. Now, of course, from 1775 until 1863, when free city delivery actually began, of course, the country was growing exponentially. So something had to be established. But it's the right of every American citizen. The Postal Service is actually in the Constitution. According to Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, Congress has the right and the ability to establish post offices and post roads. That's why there's congressional postal boards, and they hold meetings on channels such as CNN that discuss postal legislature, what the Postal Service can or cannot do in order to provide new ways of generating revenue to keep the post office afloat. Those things are regulated. It's not that we just decide to do whatever we want. It's got to be taken in front of the Postal Board Commission in Congress. Now, the Act of May 8, 1794 in Congress, 1 Stat. .354, stated that the Postal Service will run indefinitely. Now, however, the Postal Service does not run off of taxpayers' dollars, so there isn't anybody there to bail us out. Even with a total amount of $68 billion revenue generated, not a single dollar was used out of taxpayers' money for the fiscal year 2015. $68 billion we had to generate. Not a single penny from taxpayers' dollars. Now, how about the operations of the Postal Service? How has that changed since the beginning until now? Well, according to USPS.com, as I mentioned earlier, Postal Service machines and technology these days will run 36,000 letters an hour. And that's just on one machine in one plant, and there's hundreds of plants all over the country. Now, the mail began first, was run on steamboats before, it's run off the Pony Express before, and it's been mailed by rail on the trains. And eventually to the airplane after the creation of the first flight in North Carolina. So the operation of the Postal Service has changed immensely from just a cubbyhole system to a total computer program running 36,000 letters a minute. Now, according to USPS.com, the Postal Service handles and delivers over 60% of the world's mail. 60% of the world's mail. The United States Postal Service handles more mail in one day than FedEx does in a whole year. The Postal Service also handles more mail in 1 week than UPS does in a whole year. The Postal Service hits every single house, every single address that there is not only in America, but even territories like Puerto Rico. Now, operations have changed, and of course, with new technology, things have become a lot more scrutinized on the inside of the Postal Service. It's not just, hey, wake up, come to work, and get the mail to the right box anymore. No, there are a lot of standards that have to be met. There are a lot of time standards, there are a lot of volume standards that need to be met by each and individual employee of the United States Postal Service. As I said previously, I'm an operations program specialist, so I provide analyzation of data to see which post offices need help in which areas. That's a very, very intricate system. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company. And it all started with the first Postmaster General, Benjamin Franklin, in 1775. Now, how is this important? How do these operations of the Postal Service impact you? Well, there are a lot of things you don't know about the Postal Service. For instance, did you know if you mail a letter from El Paso to New York City, it's not supposed to take you longer than 3 days to get there? But if it does, then what's the problem? Well, that's part of my job to figure it out. When you're talking about over 100 billion pieces of mail in 1 year, packages, mail, letters, magazines, everything, that's a very large operation. It didn't start out so large, it didn't start out with such potential. But once you start offering free city delivery, you include the fact that Congress has the right, the ability, and the duty to establish the post office roads and post offices, then we have the responsibility at the Postal Service to provide that service to all American citizens. And that operation is very large, and it's very technical. And it's taken me 9 years to get to the top of the iceberg, and I still have a lot left to learn. The operation never ends. So you think about that when you go to check your mail next time. It's not just the mailman putting the letter in the box. There's a lot of things that go through the process of the United States Postal Service. The life of a letter from a day-to-day operation.